There is something else that you talk in the book, and I think it was related to, I guess, a performance review that you got at some point where, inadvertently, some people may have perceived there to be somewhat of a culture of fear, like within the organization, and so on and so forth. It was very. It was really cool how you shared that in the book, and I think you even had a quote from that performance review. I'm wondering how you went about tackling this concept of a culture of fear, and how long did it take to solve or mark it as solved?
Yeah, I mean, that was certainly a very memorable moment in my career, was getting that performance review. And it's it says a lot about everyone involved in the situation, the people who are willing to write that feedback and share it with my boss for being willing to share it with me. And I'd like to think it says something about me that I took it and I didn't, and I tried to actually do something with that feedback. Yeah, I mean, so I got that feedback. Look, my early years of my career mostly were spent at Goldman Sachs, as we mentioned. And the culture at Goldman at the time was, in the teams that I worked in, was, it was definitely a little bit of a like top down, the boss tells you what to do kind of culture. There was a lot of yelling in general. And to this, and I have sort of, it's hard for me to like think about it now. I didn't personally get yelled at much, if at all, right? I actually, like, for whatever reason, managed to escape it, but I was around it and I certainly internalized it. So, now I'm at Rent the Runway. I'm running this engineering team. I've never done this before. I've never run a team at this scale. The systems are very unstable because we're a startup and we're going through this big rewrite. The people are unstable because it's a startup, and like, look, people quit at startups all the time, even when you're doing, great work. It was like a super stressful situation. I was actually pregnant with my first child. So there was like a lot going on. And I'm a type A kind of personality. I am conflict. I'm very comfortable with conflict. I'm used to, I prefer to have kind of open conflict that can be good in some situations. It can be bad in some situations. And then I had these very high standards. They weren't being met. I was stressed out. I was in a high pressure situation. And the result was basically I was just not behaving well, right? I was, getting really mad at people when things went wrong. I was blaming them. I was definitely yelling. And, so I get this feedback and I'm like, well, crap, that is not the person I want to be. And I think of myself as like nice and fun and, I don't take myself too seriously, but I'm also super intense and super opinionated and, can be very intimidating. And so, I had to really just like take a step back and really start working on it. So I had to work on, how am I communicating with people? When things go wrong, am I losing my temper or am I taking a breath? Am I like picking when I think something is really important and when I'm just in a bad mood or, not feeling good about things, right? I still am a short-tempered kind of person. I'm still an intense person. This is still, I still occasionally get feedback about being intimidating. And I had to work really hard on controlling my own emotions and frankly becoming mature. And I said earlier, a lot of growing to the most senior levels of leadership is about maturity, right? And like a lot of us, I think, have this mental image that if you're smart enough and talented enough, you can get away with being a jerk and still become really successful. And look, that's obviously clearly sort of true because there are plenty of successful jerks out there. So let's not pretend like there's not some truth there. But most of us are not good enough to do that. And even if you are good enough to do that, do you want to be that person? And like, whether or not I could have been a successful jerk or not, I didn't want to be a successful jerk. Like, this is not what I wanted.